The playoffs are here, and you can predict the action all the way to the finals with FanDuel Predicts. Predict the spread, the total points, and even the game-winning moments that make the playoffs. Sign up and get a $25 bonus with FanDuel Predicts.
Offered by FanDuel Prediction Markets, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant. 18-plus bonus is non-withdrawable and expires 7 days after receipt. Trading derivatives involves significant risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Manage your activity with their consumer protection tools. Restrictions apply. See terms at FanDuel.com/predicts/bonus-offer-terms.
It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me. Good morning. It is Wednesday, April 29th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. Sunshine this morning, clouds this afternoon, the high 60. And then tonight and overnight, showers, low 49. Thursday, sun and clouds, high 63. If you are walking out the door with us right now, 51 cloudy in Pearl River up in Rockland. It's 50 and cloudy in West Orange over in New Jersey. And it's 50 and cloudy right outside our Midtown studios.
This is the Top 5 at 5.
The King and Queen ready to take Manhattan. James Comey facing a fresh batch of legal woes. A Mayor Mamdani endorsed candidate goes down to defeat. Yonkers is not messing around with dog owners who leave a mess. And a World War II soldier from Brooklyn finally comes home. All right, let's get into it at 5:01. The King and Queen being welcomed to the White House yesterday. They had a pretty busy day. President Trump says the U.S., the U.K. share a centuries-old bond. King Charles, Queen Camilla were at the White House. They started their day there yesterday.
Honoring the British King might seem an ironic beginning to our celebration of 250 years of American independence. But in fact, no tribute could be more appropriate. Before we ever proclaimed our independence, Americans carried within us the rarest of gifts, moral courage, and it came from a small but mighty kingdom from across the sea.
We were all watching the ceremonies on the front of the White House lawn. Sort of interesting to watch.
American patriots today can sing, "My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty," only because our colonial ancestors first sang, "God save the King."
Now, once that ceremony was over and they had people from the British Embassy there, they had the president's cabinet was there, then the King and the Queen drove over to Congress in what was a rare address before both the House and the Senate.
Let me say with unshakable resolve, such acts of violence will never succeed.
That was King Charles talking about the White House Correspondents' Dinner on Saturday night. Queen Elizabeth is the only other British monarch to have addressed a joint session of Congress when she visited the U.S. all the way back in 1991. King Charles lightheartedly talked about the connection between the UK and the U.S.
For all of that time, our destinies as nations have been interlinked. As Oscar Wilde said, we have really everything in common with America nowadays, except, of course, language.
Yeah, he had some pretty funny one-liners. Got standing ovations from both sides of the aisle. Talked about how the UK and the US share similar ideas, citing taxation without representation as an example.
Ours is a partnership born out of dispute, but no less strong for it. So perhaps in this example, we can discern that our nations are in fact instinctively like-minded.
Yeah, and then last night, the day was not over, President Trump celebrating the bond between the U.S. and the UK at a White House state dinner honoring King Charles and Queen Camilla.
There's something unique and very special that has always united our two people, a certain nobility of spirit and heroic soul.
As the direct descendant of King George III, I know this is a nation that never gives up.
Yeah, Britain's King Charles, Queen Camilla, going to head here to the city a little bit later this morning.
It's a jam-packed schedule that begins with the royals attending a ceremony at the 9/11 Memorial, meeting with first responders and victims' families, highlighting the ongoing ties between the UK and US ahead of the 25th anniversary of the September 11th attack. The royal couple also expected to meet with Mayor Zoran Mamdani. King Charles will also meet with business leaders to talk trade and with children facing food insecurity. Queen Camilla is expected to gift a new Root doll to the New York Public Library's Winnie the Pooh collection. I'm Sarah Lee Kessler.
Okay, so they head this way this morning. The traffic nightmare, that'll begin early this afternoon when their first visit will be to the 9/11 Memorial. Will lay a wreath, and then they'll head up to the Public Library here in Midtown, then up to Harlem. So just expect, it's kind of like when the UN is in town, there's going to be traffic zones that are all of a sudden cut off to people. So keep it here. Of course, we'll have the latest on that all day long. 5:05, Port Authority of New York and New Jersey making a change after the deadly crash at LaGuardia, and an initial report on the crash from the NTSB.
The Port Authority will now install tracking devices on its airport vehicles at all three major New York City airports. They tested the idea at Newark last year, but had not widely implemented trackers. In its preliminary report about the March crash at LaGuardia, the NTSB noted the lack of tracking devices as an issue. It said that if the fire truck that was hit by an Air Canada Express jet had been outfitted with a tracker, the airport's ground surveillance system would have alerted and may have prevented the crash that killed both of the plane's pilots. In New York, I'm Andrew Whitman.
An important part of the construction of a new Port Authority bus terminal in Midtown is now underway.
Officials marked a milestone Tuesday in the construction of the new terminal. Workers installed the first steel girders that will be used to build decks over portions of Dyer Avenue and the Lincoln Tunnel Expressway. Once they're complete, the decks will be used to create 3.5 acres of open green space. The new terminal, which is expected to be completed in 2034, will be able to accommodate nearly double the number of buses per hour. In New York, I'm Daria Albinger.
Down to Washington.
Daria Albinger, WOR News.
Ooh, I don't know what that's about. Down to Washington, the Department of Justice says former FBI Director James Comey being indicted for knowingly making a threat to kill the President of the U.S. Yesterday, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche said Comey faces 2 felony charges related to threats against President Trump.
Threatening the life of the President of the United States will never be tolerated by the Department of Justice.
Latest charges connected to a social media post featuring the message 8647, which the DOJ says was a call to assassinate President Trump. Blanche says the 2 counts each carry a maximum sentence of 10 years. More from Todd Blanche.
Well, this case is unique, and this indictment stands out because of the name of the defendant. His alleged conduct is the same kind of conduct that we will never tolerate.
FBI Director Kash Patel says a North Carolina grand jury debated the indictment.
And that grand jury spoke, and that grand jury returned a 2-count indictment against James Comey.
You'll remember last year the DOJ charged Comey for allegedly lying to Congress. A federal judge later dismissed the case after finding the interim U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia was improperly appointed. WABC News Time, 5:09. A man seen in a viral video being beaten by 2 undercover NYPD detectives in a Brooklyn liquor store earlier this month, now suing for $100 million.
My life will never be the same.
Timothy Brown was wheeled into a news conference Tuesday afternoon wearing a sling and holding a cane. The home health aide says he's physically and emotionally scarred by an April 14th incident in which he was beaten by cops who mistook him for a drug suspect. Brown is suing the city, the NYPD, and the undercover officers for $100 million. Police Commissioner Tisch and Mayor Mamdani have previously said the incident was disturbing. The officers stripped of their guns and badges. But Brown says that's not enough.
What happened to me should never happen to anyone else.
I'm Sarah Lee Kessler.
And coming up after 5:30, we'll hear more from some of those involved in that incident. Then again, after 5:30. Consumer confidence edged higher in April.
The Conference Board board reported its headline confidence index rose 0.6 of a point from March's upwardly revised reading. The board's chief economist noted little overall change despite concerns about rising gas prices due to the war in the Middle East. Looking ahead, buying plans for big-ticket items including homes, autos, and electronics trended slightly higher for the next 6 months. I'm Matt Mattinson.
President Trump claims Iran is in a state of collapse, and he's asked Washington to lift its blockade on Iranian ports as soon as possible. This is all leading up to what could be new peace talks. Gulf leaders have met in Saudi Arabia and say Iran must take the initiative to make serious efforts to rebuild confidence after attacks on the region. Israel killed 3 emergency workers in southern Lebanon yesterday, and the UAE has announced it's leaving OPEC on Friday, ending nearly 60 years of membership in the oil-producing cartel. Now, Iran had sent a peace proposal Washington's way. We haven't heard an official response to that, but what insiders are saying that the president and the White House will reject that deal. Senate Republicans, they've blocked a resolution to stop President Trump from ordering military operations against Cuba without congressional authorization.
The Democrat-sponsored resolution was defeated Tuesday. Trump has previously indicated his willingness to intervene in Cuba and has imposed a blockade of oil shipments to the island nation. This comes after the failure of several Democrat-led efforts to limit Trump's war powers with regard to Iran. I'm Mark Mayfield.
5:12. Let's go out to California. 8 candidates for California governor debating last night. Republican Steve Hilton addressed the issue of affordability.
My first budget with my plan to make our state Cal-affordable. $3 gas, cut your electric bills in half. Your first $100,000 tax-free.
Now, the polling in this race has been all over the place, but the latest one that we have has Hilton and Democrat Tom Steyer, who just seems to have run for about every office, leading the pack. Also taking part in last night's debate, Republican Chad Bianco, along with 5 other Democrats, including Xavier Becerra. Here's Tom Steyer talking about his idea to lower the cost of housing in California.
The solution here is not a silver bullet. It's what I call silver buckshot. We need to work to shorten and reduce the cost of permitting. We need to redo zoning. There have been steps that I've supported in the last year on that way.
Republican candidate for governor Chad Bianco blames Democrats in the state legislature for all that's wrong in California.
California is broken because of what has been happening in Sacramento because of an absolute failed Democrat progressive agenda that is destroying California.
So this is the second of 3 planned debates, comes with a little more than a month to go until the primary election, in which the 2 top vote getters will advance to the November general election. Meanwhile, donors want their money back from Eric Swalwell's campaign for California governor after several women accused him of sex assault.
Hundreds of donors want $1.5 million back. Swalwell's campaign tanked after the first allegation surfaced. More women then came forward and many staffers quit. Swalwell dropped out of the governor's race on April 12th and said he'd resign from Congress the next day. Since then, his campaign has received a flood of refund requests. Several reports suggest Swalwell appears to be using campaign funds for legal costs. I'm Dina Kodiak.
While we're out in California, the parents of kids who were tutored by the alleged White House Correspondents' Dinner shooters say they're still shocked by what he did. This mom says her daughter was helped by Cole Allen to take exams like the SAT.
It was very shocking. I didn't realize that he had tutored her. Yeah, I did ask her. I showed him the picture and I said, hey, do you recognize him? And she's like, yeah, but I didn't bring anything else up.
Suspect Cole Allen worked at C2 Education in his hometown of Torrance, California, which tutors students for college entrance exams. He lived with his parents and his sibling. This woman says Allen was quiet, kept to himself. She had seen him as recently as this week.
Very shy, very quiet. Come across him in the hallway, wouldn't look at you. He wouldn't interact. He'd come out and sit here and have lunch, and that's about it.
Yeah, we're getting new information about the shooting on Saturday night. A round that was fired by the alleged gunman at the Correspondents' Dinner likely hit a cell phone in the pocket of a Secret Service officer's bulletproof vest, saving him. And CBS News cites 2 sources familiar with the investigation, saying the officer fired 5 shots at Cole Allen, who was running around, they say, 9 miles per hour when he raced past them. The report says Allen tripped to the ground and officers immediately jumped on him. It's unclear if Allen fired the shotgun just before, during, or after falling. Officials still conducting tests now to confirm whether it was Allen's shot that hit the officer who was wearing that bulletproof vest. In a moment, we'll head down to Florida where there's a new battle over redistricting. We'll get into that in just a moment. But first, 5:15, let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk. Knicks had a huge night, Justin Ellick, no?
Indeed, they did, Noam Layden. Separating themselves from the Atlanta Hawks. Took a couple of games in this series. Obviously, it was knotted at 2 games apiece, with the Knicks down 2-1 at one point. But last couple of games, the Knicks really putting some distance between them and the Hawks on the court. Jalen Brunson, he went for 39 points, nearly extending his own franchise record for 40-point playoff games. And the Knicks did rout the Atlanta Hawks 126-97 for a 3-2 lead in the first-round playoff series. Brunson already had 8 40-point games in his first 3 postseasons with the Knicks. He hadn't even cracked 30 in this series until pouring in 17 points in the fourth quarter to prevent any chance of Atlanta making it a game. OG Anunoby added 17 points and 10 rebounds for the Knicks, while Karl-Anthony Towns had 16 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 assists. The Knicks need one more victory to reach the second round for the 4th straight season, which would continue their longest streak since advancing 9 straight times from 1991 through 1999. With their second straight lopsided victory, the Knicks position themselves to win the series tomorrow night in Atlanta. They would have another chance at home in Game 7 if they need it. Elsewhere around the NBA, your final from Boston, 76ers staying alive, beating the Celtics 113-97. Boston still leading that series 3-2. And out in San Antonio, the Spurs, beating the Trailblazers 114-95. San Antonio wins that series 4-1. They'll face either Minnesota or Denver in the Western Conference semifinals. Head to the Diamond in Arlington. Cam Schlittler struck out 8 over 6 scoreless innings in a duel with Texas ace Jacob deGrom. Aaron Judge homered in his 3rd consecutive game, and the Yankees held on for a 3-2 win over the Rangers. Yanks won for the 10th time in 11 games and secured consecutive series victories in Texas by winning the first 2 against the Rangers after taking 2 of 3 in Houston. Judge's shot leading off the 9th was his 12th, tying him with Munetaka Murakami for the Chicago White Sox for the Major League lead. It was also the difference in the game. Up next for the Yankees, they'll go for an 8-1 mark on the road trip with righty Elmer Rodriguez set for his Major League debut this afternoon against Rangers righty Nathan Eovaldi. First pitch from Arlington is scheduled for 2:35 p.m. In Queens, Juan Soto hit a 2-run homer that capped a 7-run 4th inning, and the Mets breezed to an 8-0 victory over the Washington Nationals. Bo Bichette also homered and drove in 2 runs, and Clay Holmes combined with 2 relievers on a 3-hitter as the banged-up Mets won for only the 3rd time in 18 games, perhaps taking a little heat off manager Carlos Mendoza, who is clearly on the hot seat. Up next for the Mets, the lefty David Peterson returns to the rotation after 10 days in the bullpen. He'll get the start for a 7:10 p.m. first pitch from Citi Field tonight. That is your Sports Noam, and I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
WABC News Time, 5:20. A U.S. Special Forces soldier pleading not guilty after he allegedly made hundreds of thousands of dollars betting on the removal of Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro.
Gannon Ken Van Dyke is accused of using classified information about the operation to make prediction market bets. The Justice Department says a soldier participated in the planning and execution of the U.S. operation to capture Maduro. He's said to have placed a wager in excess of $30,000 on Polymarket just before President Trump announced the operation was a success. Van Dyke has been released on a $250,000 bond. I'm Mark Mayfield.
Down to Florida, where state lawmakers there have begun debating a redistricted congressional map. House Speaker Daniel Perez shut down a media allegation that the governor is trying to help President Trump keep the House with that new congressional map.
The governor drew a map, and it is our job to entertain that map, to debate it, to converse it, and to eventually vote on it. That's what this body is going to do. And everyone in this chamber is going to have an opportunity to ask questions, to have debate, and eventually to vote.
Committee chair down there of Fort Myers says lawmakers feeling confident that moving forward on the maps that were presented by the governor.
We have an obligation when we review redistricting maps to first and foremost make sure that they comply with the United States Constitution. We will hear more on legal arguments from the governor's team today, and we will take those up as we continue the process.
That proposal comes after Virginia approved a constitutional amendment that would allow the state to redraw its congressional districts, flipping 4 GOP seats to Democrat ones. Of course, we had the same thing happening in California and in Texas. Speaking of Texas, the owners of Camp Mystic in Texas Hill Country responding to claims that they did not do enough to save the 27 kids and counselors who were killed in last year's floods. Ed Eastland says his dad was frantically tracking the storm that night.
He looked upstream of us, and those river gauge sensors were offline, so we could only rely on the gauges downstream of us.
A state-led investigation into the disaster found that the owners had plenty of time to knock on doors and get kids to higher ground.
The storm was moving to the northeast and to the southwest of us. There was nothing behind it, so it felt like it had to end soon. I do believe that all of our actions that morning were based on reason from the knowledge we had from previous floods and in the moment.
Yeah, some of this is, of course, a legal and court case. The other part of this is whether to reopen Camp Mystic come this summer. Purdue Pharma must pay a 9-figure fine now, ending the criminal case against the OxyContin maker and enabling it to go out of business.
A federal judge in Manhattan Tuesday sentenced Purdue to pay a $225 million fine. This after the company's guilty plea in 2020 connected to its marketing and distribution of OxyContin, a key to the opioid epidemic in the U.S. The rest of Purdue's $7.4 billion settlement plan is earmarked for impacted communities, governments, and individuals. The company's chairman apologized to victims late in the hearing. Purdue will cease to exist as of Friday. Its assets will be transferred to Noah Pharma, which aims to develop treatments to the opioid crisis. In New York, I'm Andrew Whitman.
Another sign that you can never outrun the law, an arrest in a California cold case murder that goes back to the 1990s.
In 1991, a mother disappeared from her home, leaving her 11-month-old baby crying in a high chair. It was late November in Granite Bay, California, just north of Sacramento. Cindy Warner also left behind her shoes, coat, and car. Her body was found 3 weeks later in a remote area 40 miles away. Her murder unsolved until now. Placer County Police say thanks to DNA, they've arrested the man who killed her, 64-year-old James Lawhead Jr. He was released from prison the year Warner went missing and has long been a suspect, but they couldn't find him for years. Using facial recognition equipment, he was tracked down to Arizona and arrested in Bullhead City, charged with kidnapping, rape, and murder. I'm Jason Nathanson.
Supermarkets, Albertsons, and Safeway being sued now over those buy one, get one offers. Washington State Attorney General Nick Brown says the stores would allegedly raise the price of a product right before you would get that buy one, get one free offer.
Then the stores lower the prices within about 30 days after the deal is over.
Yeah, so this lawsuit alleges more than 3 million transactions over a 5-year period were deceptive. It claims the practice brought in about $20 million in deceptive deals. The Washington State Attorney General says the practice was widespread among these two supermarkets.
Our investigation found that this deceptive practice applied to all sorts of advertised deals on common products that every Washingtonian is buying. Consumers walk into these stores, think that they're getting a bargain. They're being told that they're getting a deal. But in reality, they're just paying an inflated price for that first item.
Now, Albertsons, which owns Safeway and Albertsons, deny those claims. Former NBA player Damon Jones pleading guilty in a federal gambling case here in the city.
Jones was accused last fall of selling non-public info to sports gamblers for a cut of the profits. He initially pleaded not guilty to wire fraud and money laundering conspiracy charges, but changed his plea Tuesday in a Brooklyn courtroom. Nearly 3 dozen arrests were made at the beginning of the basketball season in connection with separate gambling cases. Jones is the first defendant to plead guilty. Others arrested include former Miami Heat player Terry Rozier and Basketball Hall of Famer Chauncey Billups. I'm Sarah Lee Kessler.
525. Taylor Swift's company has filed 3 trademark applications with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. Trademark lawyer Josh Gerben says the move is meant to protect her identity in an era of AI.
If she's able to own a trademark on her voice and the sound of her voice, she could theoretically stop the AI platforms from creating content using her voice in any capacity.
2 applications cover sound trademarks for the phrases "Hey, it's Taylor," and "Hey, it's Taylor Swift," I should say, and "Hey, it's Taylor." A third seeks protection for a specific photograph of Swift holding a pink guitar on stage. Gerben says the filing aims to use trademark law to cover a legal gray area that's been created by AI.
She might be able to argue that because her voice is protected as a trademark, that new song that the AI has generated is actually a violation of her trademark rights, whereas it wouldn't really have been a violation of copyright rights.
Yeah, a good thing she's doing that. I see so many fakes with her in it. Of course, people sometimes believe those fakes that are out there as though AI fakes, because some of them are pretty good.
It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me. Good morning. It is Wednesday, April 29th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. Sunshine this morning. We'll see some clouds this afternoon. The high going to be 60. Tonight and overnight, rain, low 49. And then Thursday, sun and clouds, a little bit warmer, high 63. If you're walking out the door with us right now, so happy you are. 51 cloudy, Pearl River up in Rockland. It's 50 and cloudy in West Orange over in New Jersey. And it's 49 and cloudy right outside our Midtown studios. WABC News Time, 5:39. After the pomp and circumstance in Washington, D.C., King Charles and Queen Camilla headed here to the city a little bit later this morning, a trip that will include a stop in Harlem and a visit to the 9/11 memorial. Their visit comes in the wake of the shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, which has prompted officials to take a second look at security. They've been working on the security plan for the King and the Queen for months now, but they do admit Secret Service said they went back and looked at it a second time, of course, after that shooting on Saturday night. Matt McCool, he is a special agent in charge of New York Field Office of the Secret Service. He says they have a plan in place to protect the King and Queen today.
You got the long-range threat that you got to deal with. Every rooftop, every window. We have been planning for the worst-case scenario from day one.
Right, because some of these events are outside. At least the visit to the 9/11 memorial, where the King and Queen will lay a wreath, that's outdoors. McCool says the plan in place is multi-layered, carefully orchestrated among his agency, their UK counterparts, the NYPD, the FDNY, the Port Authority. They will be ferried around the city in armored vehicles as they move from place to place. From the first spot will be the 9/11 memorial. That's early this afternoon. Then the Queen will head here to Midtown to the Public Library, 42nd Street, while the King will go up to Harlem. Here's more from Matt McCool, which is a pretty cool name, actually.
You will see, wider perimeters for this level of a protectee. So it will impact traffic. There will be, there will be disruptions. We're going to limit them as much as possible. All the mitigating factors for security we've been working on, and we're looking forward to a safe and successful visit.
Yeah, so just expect if you're in the city today, there will be points where things will be shut down. The first stop early this afternoon, 9/11 Memorial, Lower Manhattan. Then from there, the Queen will head to the Public Library, King Charles up to 134th Street in Harlem, where he will meet with the nonprofit Harlem Grown, which provides free locally grown fruits and vegetables to the community. This is King Charles' 20th visit to the U.S., but it's the first time as king. 541. Mayor Mamdani was not on the ballot in a Manhattan City Council election last night, but his political brand took a drubbing. City Council staffer Carl Wilson declaring victory early last night, a little over 40% of the vote, to beat Lindsey Boylan, the Democratic Socialist that was backed by Mamdani. She was just at 26%. The district Wilson will represent, which covers part of Chelsea, the West Village, and Hell's Kitchen, they voted overwhelmingly for Mamdani for mayor last year, but last night they did not pick his top contender, Lindsey Boylan, who was one of the Governor Cuomo accusers. Instead, they seemed to go big time for Carl Wilson. 542. A man seen in a viral video being beaten by undercover NYPD detectives in a Brooklyn liquor store earlier this month, announcing yesterday that he's suing the city for $100 million. Timothy Brown, he was wheeled into this news conference yesterday afternoon wearing a sling and holding a cane.
It was wrong and it was disgusting. And my life will never be the same.
The home health aide says he's physically and emotionally scarred by the April 14th incident in which he was pummeled by cops who mistook him for a drug suspect. Brown suing the city, the NYPD, and the undercover officers for $100 million, claiming their use of excessive force violated state and federal law.
I felt humiliated, disrespected, embarrassed, and I was brutally beaten for no reason.
And Timothy Brown says he's suing to prevent future incidents like the one that took place against him.
I'm a taxpaying citizen, and what happened to me should never happen to anyone else.
Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch and Mayor Mamdani have previously said the incident was disturbing, with the officers being stripped of their guns and badges while Internal Affairs investigates. 5:43. Police continue to search for a number of teenagers after shots were fired on a Manhattan-bound A train in Queens during the Monday rush home, wounding a 15-year-old boy. As we told you yesterday, the chaos unfolded about 6 o'clock. Commuters ducking for their lives as gunfire erupted on this train car moments before it pulled into the 80th Street station in Ozone Park. It's believed the shooting stemmed from some ongoing dispute between the teenagers. In fact, the same teen who was shot in the chest on Monday night was shot in February by another group of teenagers during a fight. He was arrested, but the charges were dropped against him after the victim refused to testify against him. But now in this new case that could have gone even worse than it did aboard a subway train, police say they're looking for 5 men who fled the shooting. Here's MTA Chair Jano Lieber, who says he's confident police will find the gunman.
Here's the main point. We got video. Every subway car in New York has a video camera, has 2 video cameras in it. They're getting great video. The cops have leads on the perps, and they're going to get him.
And riders, the ones who were not on that train car, say the gunfire so upsetting just makes them feel uneasy as they go down to catch a subway.
It feels very unsafe to travel during rush hour.
Things like that, it's not too common out here, but I feel like recently it's been getting a little worse.
Yeah, there's others who say the same thing. They seem like it's been more violent as of late.
The other day there was a man that was walking around with a knife on this platform. But that's the thing, it's not very safe around here.
Yeah. Anybody, of course, with information on this latest shooting is asked to call the NYPD Crime Stoppers. In a moment, we'll tell you why 2 Fordham basketball players have been permanently banned, or I should say former Fordham basketball players, permanently banned by the NCAA. We'll get into that in just a moment. But first, 5:45, let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk. And here's Justin Ella.
Thank you, Noah Maladen. Start here at the Garden. Jalen Brunson scored 39 points, nearly extending his own franchise record for 40-point playoff games, and the Knicks routed the Hawks 126-97 for a 3-2 lead in their first-round playoff series. Brunson already had 8 40-point games in his first 3 postseasons with the Knicks. He hadn't even cracked 30 in this series until pouring in 17 in the fourth quarter to prevent any chance of Atlanta making it a game. OG Anunoby added 17 points and 10 rebounds for the Knicks, while Karl Anthony Towns had 16 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 assists. The Knicks need one more victory to reach the second round for the 4th straight season, which would continue their longest streak since advancing 9 straight times from 91 through 2000. With their second straight lopsided victory, the Knicks position themselves to win the series tomorrow night in Atlanta. They would have another chance at home in Game 7 if they need it. Elsewhere around the NBA playoffs, final from Boston, 76ers staying alive, beating the Celtics 113-97 in Game 5 there. Boston still leading that series 3-2, and out in San Antonio, the Spurs beating the Trailblazers 114-95, so San Antonio wins that series 4-1. They'll face either Minnesota or Denver in the Western Conference semifinals. Head to the Diamond in Arlington. Cam Schlittler struck out 8 over 6 scoreless innings in a duel with Texas A's Jacob deGrom. Aaron Judge homered in his third consecutive game, and the Yankees held on for 3-2 victory over the Rangers. The Yanks won for the 10th time in 11 games and secured consecutive series victories in Texas by winning the first 2 against the Rangers after taking 2 of 3 in Houston. Judge's shot leading off the ninth was his 12th, tying him with Munetaka Murakami of the Chicago White Sox for the Major League lead. It was also the difference in the game. Up next for the Yankees, they'll go for an 8-1 mark on the road trip with righty Elmer Rodriguez set for his Major League debut this afternoon against Rangers righty Nathan Eovaldi. First pitch from Arlington is scheduled for 2:35 p.m. And out in Queens,
you must be feeling pretty good about the Bronx Bombers. Wow, what a streak they're on.
Yeah, they're playing great baseball. Listen, when Judge is this hot, you're not losing baseball games. That's just the bottom line. The guy's homering every game. If you saw last night's homer, that ball still hasn't landed yet.
No, I saw that, yeah.
My TV was way too loud when he hit it, so the crack of the bat actually hurt my ears. And, they're playing really good baseball. You pair that with the unbelievable pitching from Schlittler every 5 days. He's shut down. Obviously, Max Fried has been phenomenal so far this season. And, the only really downside in that starting rotation has been Luis Gil, and you just saw the Yankees send him down a couple of days ago to AAA. So, you pair great hitting with great pitching. That's your recipe in baseball, Noam Aladen.
Yes, it is.
En route to winning baseball games. So, and you saw the Mets do that rarely. They've been rarely doing it so far this season, but you saw them do it last night as well. Juan Soto hitting a 2-run homer that capped a 7-run fourth, and the Mets did breeze to an 8-0 victory over the Washington Nationals. Bo Bichette also homered and drove in 2 runs, and Clay Holmes combined with 2 relievers on a 3-hitter as the banged-up Mets won for only the third time in 18 games. Up next for him, lefty David Peterson returns to rotation after 10 days in the bullpen. He'll get the start for a 7:10 p.m. first pitch from Citi Field tonight. That is your Sports Noah, man. I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
WABC News Time, 5:50. 2 former Fordham basketball players permanently banned by the NCAA on Tuesday for their roles in a point-shaving scheme that was the subject of the sprawling federal indictment that was unsealed back in January. Elijah Gray, Will Richardson each agreed with a bettor to throw a game against Duquesne back in February of 2024 in exchange for $10,000 to $15,000. They ended up winning that game, so they didn't throw it. They ultimately reneged on the agreement, at least one of the players, because apparently Duquesne was so bad they couldn't figure out a way to lose to them. Fordham beat Duquesne 79-67.
Fordham rallied in the second half and won the game. So the atmosphere was great. It looked and sounded good on TV, and they won. So it felt like a game to remember in a good way. But that now kind of changes with today's news.
So Gray was one of more 24 people accused by federal prosecutors in Pennsylvania of conspiring to fix games. He's agreed to plead guilty in the case. His sentencing scheduled for July. It seems that this was, of course, all about money, and in some cases these players apparently needed the cash. But again, they ended up not throwing the game. In one case, they didn't take the money.
These are kids where a $5,000 inducement to throw a game or a $10,000 inducement to throw a game, that's a lot of money for them, and it means more.
Yeah, so they haven't played for Fordham in a while. They've transferred to a number of schools, but now they've been banned outright. 5:52, Smithtown, Long Island Councilman Thomas Lohman pleading not guilty yesterday to assault charges stemming from an alleged fight with a fellow town board member. Prosecutors say Lohman attacked Councilman Tom McCarthy during a town board meeting, shoving him and then punching him in the face. And this apparently took place in front of the entire town council. Lohman's attorney says his client denies the allegations. Town residents say violence is not the answer.
It's unfortunate that it turns out where they're accusing somebody of punching somebody. You would think they would be able to control their emotions.
You would hope so. Lohman did not comment as he left court yesterday. The case scheduled to return at a later date. Over to Yonkers, where neighbors now, residents there, who failed to pick up after their dogs will now face really high fines there. Mayor Mike Spano announcing yesterday that the city council approved legislation that's reclassifying the act of not picking up after your dog from a Class 3 to a Class 2 offense. The original fine of about $1,500 has now been raised to $5,000.
That is a problem. It's just not fair to young families walking down the street that they have to worry about their children getting entangled with this stuff.
Yes, so the city says dog waste, and this is, by the way, true basically in any town you go to, is always among the residents' top reported complaints. So they say it's time to do something about it. In Yonkers, apparently they are.
There's certain areas where you see a lot of poop. You do the crime, you do the time.
Yeah.
Pick up your dog poop, you don't got to worry about a fine.
Now, nearly 100 tickets had been issued since February. Spano says garbage cans and bags are everywhere across the city, so there's no reason you shouldn't comply with the rules.
Yeah, I just do it immediately. It's bags everywhere.
Yeah.
There's a bag everywhere, and it's a garbage can.
Yeah, you just can't be that irresponsible, and yeah, you should be slapped with a fine if you are. When it comes to budget deadlines, so goes Albany and so goes New York City. Both will be late with their budgets.
Albany punted again Tuesday and passed a 7th extender for the state budget that was due April 1st. Given their uncertainty and continuing arguments over state aid for the city's deficit, Mayor Mamdani and City Council Speaker Julie Menon did their own punting Tuesday. They're pushing back the May 1st deadline for the city's budget to May 12th. Mamdani and Menon have disagreements on the city's approach, but both are seeking extra state help and both agree on the delayed city budget. Governor Hochul pushed back, telling reporters the city could complete its own spending plan without waiting for the state to do the same. In New York, I'm Andrew Whitman.
New York, New Jersey officials issue these warnings ahead of the World Cup this summer, urging people to work from home during the World Cup and prohibiting parking and tailgating at MetLife Stadium. It leaves people wondering if the region is ready for such a big event. Remember, New Jersey Transit last minute starts charging passengers $150, ticket holders to get to MetLife Stadium. So they wonder what else wasn't discussed before they made this deal with FIFA.
Kind of no, it doesn't. It just seems really ridiculous, like a ridiculous situation.
Evidently not. Probably not. I mean, in reality, I lived in Atlanta during the 96 Olympics and they weren't prepared either. So I don't know if any city's as prepared as they think they are.
And this dopey thing, and it's hard for me to imagine that people thought this was real, but maybe there's something to this, that there were fans who were so upset about the New Jersey Transit $150 that they were going to try to walk from New York City to MetLife Stadium, which is basically impossible.
It just sends a bad message, I think. It's the negative thing. I mean, you want something like this to happen again, and it seems like it would be less likely with that kind of news.
Someone's got to pay for it, right? So I guess charge the soccer fans instead of the commuters. We already pay enough.
Well, that's true, you do. And one with this story. The remains of a World War II soldier from Brooklyn have been returned home after decades. Air Force Staff Sergeant Nicholas Governawi was killed in a crash off the Solomon Islands just 10 days after his 23rd birthday in July of 1943. Governawi's nephew, Anthony, says his family never stopped thinking about him.
It was a chapter that was never closed for my family. It was a very painful story for them to tell. So there was always the hope, because they never found him, that, well, maybe one day he would return.
Yeah, so Anthony was watching a documentary about this group called Project Recover. It's an organization that uses DNA technology to locate American service members missing in action. So he called them, they sent him a kit, and he was surprised that this all worked out in the end.
I'm thinking, the plane, it's not on land, it's in the ocean in the South Pacific. What could they possibly find? So, but nonetheless, I called and they sent me the kit.
So he sent the kit back, and now 25 years later, Anthony got the news he never expected to get, that his uncle would come home. And so he says his family came from all over the country to be there as the remains landed here in New York, and they got to give him the proper goodbye that he never got. He says it's sad for his mother and the family members who didn't get that chance because they passed away a while ago.
It was surreal. And to have him laid to rest with his mother, his father, his siblings, they're all together again.
Yeah, great job done by Project Recover.
Thanks for listening to the News Hour with Noam Laden. You can hear the News Hour with Noam Laden weekday mornings at 5 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Born on America's darkest day of 9/11, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation has been helping America's heroes ever since. Heroes like FDNY Lieutenant Edward J. McDonough Jr., a Marine Corps veteran and lifelong public servant. After 9/11, McDonough served at Ground Zero. He later lost his life to a related cancer, leaving behind his wife Kimberly and their 5 children. Tunnel to Towers honored his sacrifice by paying off the family's mortgage. Donate $11 monthly and amplify your impact with a car or land donation. Go to T2T.org today.